A fellow governor of the local junior school in Harnham expressed his joy to me of having recently visited Paris and the newly restored Notre Dame Cathedral. Notre Dame Cathedral in 2019 suffered a devastating fire, supposedly started by a cigarette or an electrical fault, which caused immense and costly damage. President Emmanuel Macron declared a 5-year restoration project, and Notre Dame Cathedral has now officially reopened. Nearly 1,000 workers have restored the cathedral, featuring an identical rebuilt spire, cleaned stonework, and restored timber roof. With over 340,000 donors from 150 countries contributed to the restoration costs. For many, watching those flames consume the roof and spire felt like watching history itself collapse. There was grief, shock, and a profound sense of helplessness watching this piece of history burn. And yet, almost immediately, something remarkable happened. People across the world committed themselves to rebuilding. This evening's readings invite us to think about building, what it means to rebuild, restore, and ultimately recognize where God dwells. The reading we had this evening from the prophecy of Haggai, we find a people standing before the ruins of what was once glorious, the temple in Jerusalem, which had now been destroyed. And as they begin to rebuild, there is a deep sense of call and encouragement from God to restore what had been lost. God's words, "Take courage, work, for I am with you in the painstaking process of rebuilding and creating all over again." That promise of God's Spirit with humanity in building speaks to us today in this Easter tide. And there is plenty of rebuilding that needs to take place in our world today. This promise speaks for those who have been displaced, had homes and towns decimated by war, building a life and rebuilding homes and places of community, schools, hospitals, places of worship. It all seems an unimaginable task. For the 3rd year in a row, Sudan's topped the International Rescue Committee's emergency watch list. This diocese, having strong links with the Sudans, have asked us all to pray this week as the crisis in Sudan has become the world's largest displacement emergency. More than 12 million people have been forced from their homes, fleeing armed conflict between the Sudanese armed forces and the Parliamentary Rapid Support Forces. This is rebuilding on a mass scale. Sudan, as we know, is not the only place. There is the Gaza Strip, wide parts of the Middle East, Ukraine, parts of Africa and Asia, where areas are reduced to rubble. I simply cannot imagine, as a mum of 2 small children, attempting to live in the midst or after ruin. God's words, "Take courage, work, for I am with you," take on a whole new perspective. Easter is the proclamation that God brings life out of ruin and glory out of what seems lost. The resurrection of Christ is the ultimate rebuilding, not of stones, but of life itself. What appeared broken and beyond repair on Good Friday, as those whom Jesus loved looked on in utter devastation, suddenly is raised. In the light of Easter, rebuilding takes on an even deeper meaning. It becomes a sign, however small, of the truth at the heart of our faith, that destruction does not have the final word. Just as the tomb could not contain Christ, what appears beyond comprehension, renewable is possible. New life can emerge where all seems lost. That may sound like I'm being a cliched Christian optimist in the light of a life and death situation for millions of people. And yet, the reality for millions of people is that hope must spring from somewhere. I will read you a poem by a child called Maryam Khalid that was published by UNICEF to showcase the voices of children living in war zones. Does peace really exist? We were told it exists, not in our homeland, though. Our dreams will be inside us, dreams of childhood. My dreams will become a reality, and I keep waiting for peace, and for us to smile happily. Life is about peace. Life is about love. Without them, life is nothing. For people and children like Maryam, to have hope in the mess is pure rebellion. And indeed in our world as it stands, and for those Sudanese refugees this night, to have hope in the mess is to stand for a rebellion of love over evil and restoration over ruin. And if they themselves have lost hope for their families and for their children, living in these impossible situations, it is the vital job of others to hold up the light of hope on their behalf and to keep praying. St. Paul takes us further in our second lesson from the Epistle to the Corinthians. Paul speaks again of building, of foundations, of careful craftsmanship, but now the focus shifts dramatically. Do you not know that you are God's temple and that God's Spirit dwells in your midst? Now God is making living temples out of humankind. For while stones can be restored and timbers replaced, the deeper work is the one God is doing within people, which is profound when you think of those who cannot see their homes physically restored. The promise is not limited to ancient Jerusalem, nor just to a gloriously well-supported and adored cathedral in Paris. It is spoken to all humankind here and now as Easter people. We may look at our own lives and see what feels diminished, faith that has grown tired, hope that has been shaken, or perhaps muted by the overwhelming sense of hopelessness as we sit in our pews. But the message of both Haggai and Easter is the same. The God of all dwells in our midst. Take courage and work, for I am with you. Jonathan Sacks wrote in his book From Optimism to Hope, the future of our world won't be decided by money, the media, or space probes to Mars, but how much or how little we value our children. So in the hope of a better world, and for the children of Sudan and nations of war, can we hold a candle for them?